The Montana wind carried the scent of pine and gunpowder across the valley. August 1995, the kind of summer afternoon that existed in memory more vivid than photographs could ever capture. 8-year-old Rachel Stone stood at the firing line, her grandfather's weathered hands steadying her small ones around the grip of his service pistol, a 1911, the same one he'd carried through Normandy, across France, into the heart of Germany. The steel was warm from the sun, heavy with history she didn't yet understand. "Breathe," the old man said. His voice carried the weight of 75 years. 50 of them lived after the war. "Don't fight the recoil. Let it happen. Control comes from acceptance, not resistance." Rachel's brown eyes squinted down the sight, a paper target 50 feet away. Simple, clean, unforgiving. "Why do we learn this, Grandpa?" The question hung in the mountain air. Behind them, the family ranch stretched toward the Rockies, a place unchanged since his grandfather had homesteaded it in 1889. 4 generations of Stones had learned to shoot on this range, but Rachel was the first girl. "Shooting isn't about killing," he said quietly. "It's about protecting those who can't protect themselves. The rifle is a tool, like a hammer, like a plow. It only matters how you use it." His hands moved to her shoulders, gentle, patient. "When you're ready, you'll know." Rachel exhaled, squeezed. The 1911 barked. The target shuddered. Center mass. Perfect. Her grandfather smiled. It was the last time she'd see that smile. 3 months later, a heart attack would take him in his sleep. Peaceful, the way old soldiers rarely got to go. But that afternoon, he lifted the 1911 from her hands and held it up to the fading sunlight. "This pistol saved my life in 1944 and the lives of 6 other men. When I'm gone, it's yours. Not because you're special, but because you'll know what to do with it." He paused. The wind shifted. "Promise me something, Rachel. If you ever pull a trigger in anger, make sure it's the only choice left. And when it's over, remember their faces. All of them. Because the day you stop remembering is the day you stop being human." Rachel nodded. She didn't understand. Not really. She was 8 years old. But she would. The screen went black. White text appeared. 29 years later. The same 1911 pistol sat in a glass display case in Lieutenant Commander Rachel Stone's quarters at Naval Amphibious Base, Coronado, California. January 2024. The morning sun cut through reinforced windows overlooking the Pacific. The pistol gleamed, oiled, maintained, never fired since that Montana afternoon. Below it, a shadow box. Her grandfather's Medal of Honor. Her father's Navy Cross from the Mekong Delta. Her own silver stars. A family history written in ribbons and citation text no one but her ever read. Rachel stood before the display in her dress whites, 37 years old. 14 years of service carved into her posture. 3 bronze stars, 2 silver stars, a Purple Heart from Raqqa, a Navy Cross nomination still buried in classified files, and 73 confirmed kills that existed only in after-action reports marked secret. She didn't look at the medals. She looked at the pistol. Her phone buzzed. A text from Captain David Chen, SEAL Team 7 liaison, her unofficial mentor since she'd earned her Trident. "Briefing in 20. Brennan's already there. Watch yourself." Rachel pocketed the phone. She knew about Major General Robert Brennan. Everyone in Naval Special Warfare knew about him. 65 years old, United States Marine Corps. 3 tours in Vietnam between 1968 and 1971. A living legend who'd earned his stars through blood and competence, back when standards meant something and politicians stayed out of operational decisions. Or so the legend went. Rachel had read his service record. Impressive. Dated. He'd spent the last 15 years in administrative positions. Policy, training doctrine, the kind of work that kept old war horses relevant without putting them in harm's way. She adjusted her cover and headed for the door. The display case reflected her exit. The pistol remained, waiting. The Joint Special Operations Training Command Conference Center was designed for collaboration. Circular table, ergonomic chairs, natural light filtered through reinforced glass, acoustic panels that absorb sound so conversations about killing stayed professional. 40 Special Operations officers packed the room. Navy SEALs, Marine Raiders, Army Special Forces, Air Force combat controllers. The best America produced, gathered to discuss close-quarters battle protocols in denied urban environments. Rachel entered at 0800 precisely. Eyes tracked her movement, some respectful, some curious, some already decided. She moved to the presentation screen at the head of the table, clicked her remote. The first slide appeared. Close Quarters Engagement Protocols. Civilian Discrimination in High-Density Environments. Good morning. I'm Lieutenant Commander Stone. For the next 40 minutes, I'll be covering terminal ballistics, threat assessment windows, and split-second discrimination protocols based on 14 years of operational deployment across 7 theaters. Her voice was neutral, professional, the kind of tone that came from explaining life-and-death concepts so many times emotion had been sanded away to pure information transfer. She clicked to the next slide, a diagram of urban room clearing patterns. Hesitation costs lives. Overreaction costs missions. The balance isn't theoretical, it's trained. In the front row, a Navy SEAL commander nodded slightly. 2 Army Special Forces officers exchanged approving glances. The room felt normal, professional, right up until Rachel noticed the man at the far end of the table. Major General Robert Brennan sat with his arms crossed. Ribbons covered his chest. Vietnam Service Medal, 3 Bronze Stars, Silver Star, Purple Heart, Combat Action Ribbon. The proof of a man who'd earned his authority the hard way. But his jaw worked like he was chewing glass. Rachel continued through her slides. Room clearing, fatal funnels, angles of approach, the technical language of violence delivered with the care of a surgeon describing procedures. 15 minutes in, Brennan's voice cut through. Commander Stone. Rachel paused mid-sentence. Finger on the remote. Every eye in the room shifted. Yes, sir? Brennan's voice carried the particular authority of someone who'd spent 30 years expecting immediate compliance. You keep referencing operational experience. Walk us through your actual field time. The question wasn't unusual in special operations circles, but the way he asked it, like a prosecutor cross-examining a suspect, made it something else. Rachel clicked off the laser pointer. 14 years, sir. 7 operational theaters. Primary role, sniper and reconnaissance. Sniper. Brennan let the word hang, testing its weight, finding it wanting. Yes, sir. So you've actually taken shots in combat? Yes, sir. The room shifted. Officers leaned forward slightly. Brigadier General Marcus Ford, seated beside Brennan, straightened. How many? Brennan asked. Rachel kept her voice neutral. 73 confirmed neutralizations. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was dense. 40 special operations officers processing a number that would put Rachel in the top tier of American military snipers. Ever. Ford let out a sharp exhale that might have been a laugh. I'm sorry, did you say 73? Yes, sir. Brennan leaned forward, elbows on the table. The gesture looked casual. It wasn't. That's an extraordinarily high number for someone in an advisory capacity. I wasn't always in an advisory capacity, General. I spent 11 years operational before transitioning to instruction. Still, Ford said, his tone sharpening, 73 confirmed kills. That would put you alongside Chris Kyle, Carlos Hathcock, the absolute top tier. Rachel met his gaze. The record is verified, sir. Tier 3 classification. Convenient. Brennan said it softly, almost gently. The word landed like a blade. A Marine Raider captain to Rachel's left cleared his throat uncomfortably. A Navy lieutenant shifted in her seat, but no one spoke. "I'm sorry," Rachel said. Her voice remained level. Brennan spread his hands in a gesture of false reasonableness. "I'm just saying it's convenient that a number like that is classified. Makes it difficult to verify, easy to claim." Ford nodded. "We've seen inflated after-action reports before. Someone takes credit for a team kill, rounds up their count, adds a little flair for the resume. It happens." Rachel felt heat rising in her chest, but her face remained neutral. Years of training, years of being questioned, years of proving the same competency over and over, while men with half her experience got the benefit of assumption. "General, with respect, every one of those 73 is documented with ISR footage, after-action reports, and third-party confirmation. The classification exists because of operational security, not to protect exaggeration." "ISR footage," Brennan repeated, "which we can't see." "Not without proper clearance, no, sir." "How very convenient." Captain Chen, 42, SEAL Team 7, Rachel's unofficial defender in rooms like this, spoke up. "General Brennan, Commander Stone's record is well established within naval special warfare. If you have questions about verification protocols, I can arrange." "Captain Chen," Brennan's voice hardened, "this isn't about inter-service loyalty. This is about operational integrity. When someone stands up in front of the nation's elite special operators and claims a kill count that rivals the legends, we have a responsibility to ask questions." Rachel's jaw tightened imperceptibly. "I'm not claiming anything, sir. I'm stating verified fact." Ford shook his head slowly. A thin smile played at his lips. 73 confirmed kills. That's not just remarkable, Commander. That's statistically improbable for anyone. He paused. Let the implication hang unfinished. For a woman, for a trained SEAL sniper with 14 years of operational deployment, Rachel corrected quietly. The interruption was surgical, professional. But in a room full of senior officers, even professional correction was still correction. Brennan's face darkened. "Trained," he seized the word. "Training and execution are different things. I served in Vietnam. I've seen plenty of qualified shooters who couldn't perform under real pressure. I've seen the cost when people aren't ready." His voice carried something beyond skepticism, something personal, raw. "Then you haven't seen enough shooters, sir." The words came out before Rachel could stop them. Not loud, not aggressive, just factual. But in this room, with these ranks, even factual insubordination was still insubordination. Brennan stood slowly. His full height and rank filled the space. "Excuse me?" Rachel took a breath, steadied herself. "I meant no disrespect, General. I'm simply saying that performance under pressure is exactly what those 73 confirm. Every shot was taken under combat conditions. Everyone was necessary. Everyone is verified by people we can't talk to, about operations we can't review, using footage we can't see. That's how classified operations work, sir." "That's how inflated egos work too," Brennan shot back. The Marine Raider captain stood abruptly. "Sir, I think—" "Sit down, Captain," Brennan ordered without looking at him. The captain sat. The room had gone beyond uncomfortable into something toxic. 40 officers watching a decorated general publicly question a junior commander's integrity, watching her defend herself with facts that couldn't be proven without clearances none of them held. Brennan stepped closer to the presentation screen, closer to Rachel. "Let me be very clear, Commander Stone. I have spent 3 decades in the United States Marine Corps. I commanded men in combat in 3 separate wars. I've seen the best shooters, the most elite operators, the absolute top tier of American military capability." He paused. The room held its breath. "And I have never, not once, seen a verified kill count above 60 without extensive documentation, multiple citations, and command-level review. My record has all of that, sir. Then why isn't it public? Because the operations were classified. All of them? Most of them, yes, sir. Ford stood now, flanking Brennan. Commander, do you understand how this looks? You're asking us to accept on faith that you have one of the highest sniper counts in American military history. But we can't verify it. We can't review it. We just have to take your word for it. You have to take the Navy's word for it, Rachel corrected. The verification isn't mine, it's institutional. Brennan's voice dropped to something colder, something that had been building throughout the entire exchange. The institution has been known to inflate credentials for political purposes, diversity quotas, optics, making sure the right people get the right press. The floor shifted beneath Rachel's feet. This wasn't about her record anymore. This was about what she represented, what Brennan thought she represented. General Brennan, she said carefully, are you suggesting my kill count was fabricated for political reasons? I'm suggesting, he said, stepping closer, that 73 confirmed kills is a fantasy number, and I'm suggesting that you know it. The room held its breath. Rachel looked at him, really looked at him, at the ribbons on his chest that told a story of combat and competency, at the stars on his collar that represented decades of earning respect, at the face of a man who had decided what she was capable of before ever checking whether he was right, and at something else, something in his eyes, not just skepticism, something deeper, personal, painful. General, she said quietly, I can prove it. Brennan's eyebrows rose. Can you now? Yes, sir. I'm requesting authorization to demonstrate competency under controlled evaluation. Ford actually laughed. What? You want to run an obstacle course? No, sir. Rachel's voice didn't waver. I want to run Scenario 7. The room went dead silent. Scenario 7 was the most demanding close-quarters battle drill in special operations training. 12 hostile targets, 4 civilian non-combatants, low-light conditions, moving obstacles, auditory distractions, a 90-second time limit. It had a 40% pass rate among male SEALs. Most operators considered it a career benchmark. Captain Chen's eyes widened. Commander Stone. Scenario 7, Brennan repeated. His surprise gave way to something that looked like anticipation. You want to run a live-fire CQB drill to prove a number? I want to demonstrate what 73 looks like when it's real, sir. Brennan exchanged a glance with Ford. Something passed between them, an understanding, an agreement, maybe just shared certainty that this would end the way they expected. Fine, Brennan said. His smile was cold. Tomorrow morning, 0600, full observation protocol. We'll all watch. Thank you, sir. Don't thank me yet, Commander, because when you fail to meet standard, and you will fail, we're going to have a very different conversation about integrity and honesty in this command. Rachel held his gaze. Understood, sir. Dismissed. She gathered her materials in silence. 40 pairs of eyes tracked her movement, some sympathetic, some curious, some already convinced she just made a career-ending mistake. Rachel walked to the door with her spine straight and her face neutral. Behind her, she heard Ford's voice, pitched just loud enough to carry. This should be entertaining. Someone laughed quietly. Rachel didn't turn around. She kept walking. Through the door, down the hallway, past administrative offices where junior personnel pretended not to stare. She made it all the way to the women's locker room before her hands started shaking. The locker room was empty. 1,400 hours on a Tuesday, most personnel were at their duty stations or training blocks. Rachel sat on the wooden bench and stared at her reflection in the mirror across the room. 37 years old, 14 years of service, 3 Bronze Stars, 2 Silver Stars, a Purple Heart, a Navy Cross nomination still classified, 73 confirmed kills that she saw every time she closed her eyes. And none of it mattered because they decided what she was before ever asking who she was. Her phone buzzed. A text from Chen. "You don't have to do this." She typed back, "Yes, I do." Another buzz. "They're going to use this against you, win or lose." Rachel stared at the message. He was right. If she failed scenario 7, they'd use it as proof she'd been lying all along. If she passed, they'd find another reason to dismiss her. Lucky run, modified scenario, unconscious assistance from the range staff. The proving was exhausting, but someone had to do it. She typed, "Maybe the next woman won't have to prove it." Sent the message, stood. Her hands had stopped shaking. Because this wasn't about her anymore. It was about every female operator who would come after her. Every woman who would have to stand in front of men who'd already decided she wasn't good enough. Rachel changed into her PT gear and headed for the base armory. 16 hours to prepare. 16 hours to turn muscle memory into mathematics. 16 hours to make sure that when she walked into that kill house, there would be no doubt, no debate, no room for interpretation, just 73 seconds of truth. The armory was quiet at 1800 hours. Most operators had finished their training blocks and headed to chow or their barracks. Rachel signed out her personal M4A1, the rifle she'd carried through 7 theaters, the one that knew her hands as well as she knew its trigger pull. The range master appeared from the back office. Command Master Chief Thomas Wade, 62 years old, 38 years in the Navy, Vietnam veteran, Silver Star from the Mekong Delta, and her father's best friend. Wade glanced at her paperwork. Scenario 7 authorization. His voice carried the gravel of age and cigarettes he'd quit 20 years too late. "That's ambitious." "I'm aware, Master Chief." He studied her face. Wade had known Rachel since she was born, had been at her father's funeral when she was 19, had written one of her letters of recommendation for SEAL training, had watched her career with the careful attention of a man who'd promised his dying friend he'd look after his daughter. But right now his expression was unreadable. "You know the current facility record is 94 seconds, right?" "I know." "And that was set by a DevGru operator with 15 years of door-kicking experience." "I know." Wade was quiet for a moment. Then, "What's the miss rate?" Rachel met his eyes. "Average is 2.3 misses per run. Civilian hit rate is about 8%. Not acceptable." "It's Scenario 7, Master Chief. It's designed to push operators past their limits." "Then I'll have to operate beyond limits." Wade handed her the weapon card, but he didn't let go when she reached for it. "Your father was the best shot I knew," he said quietly. The words came hard. "But 73, Commander, that's legendary numbers." He paused. Something flickered in his eyes, doubt he didn't want to feel. "I want to believe you. God knows I want to. But I've seen politics push unready people into positions. Quotas, optics, and good people die because of it." The words hung between them. Not accusation, just doubt. From the one man whose opinion had always mattered. "Then watch tomorrow," Rachel said quietly. "Don't defend me. Don't explain me. Just watch." She took her rifle and headed toward Lane 12, the furthest from the admin building, where she could work without observation. Behind her, Wade's voice carried across the empty range. "They modified the scenario, you know. Brennan pulled strings with the base commander. Pop-up timings 40% faster than standard protocol." Rachel stopped, turned. "That's not authorized." Brennan convinced the base commander it was necessary to validate your claimed skill level. Commander agreed. Peterson got overruled. Wade's face showed nothing, but his eyes held something Rachel recognized. The same look her father used to get when he was testing her, seeing if she'd break or adapt. "Good," Rachel said. "When I beat it, there won't be any excuses." She continued to Lane 12. Behind her, Wade remained, watching, wondering, doubting. Rachel set up the lane, not for shooting, not yet, for thinking. For the next 3 hours, she didn't touch a trigger. She ran scenarios in her mind. Hostile right, civilian left. 3 seconds to discriminate. Visualize the kill house layout, the known choke points, the angles where targets typically appeared. Because 73 confirmed kills hadn't come from superior marksmanship, they'd come from superior decision-making under pressure. The shooting was just the final step in a process that began with threat assessment, continued through tactical positioning, and ended only when there was no other option. At 2100 hours, she finally loaded a magazine, 20 rounds, set up a simple drill, 5 targets at varying distances, mixed hostile and non-hostile markings, gave herself 4 seconds per engagement. She fired 20 rounds in 18 seconds, 20 hits, 0 misses. Wade appeared behind her, arms crossed. He'd been watching from the office. How long, she didn't know. "You're not even breathing hard." "It's only paper, Master Chief." "Tomorrow won't be." Rachel ejected the magazine, cleared the chamber, set the rifle down. "Tomorrow will be easier." Wade's eyebrow rose. "How do you figure?" "Because tomorrow people will be watching." She turned to face him fully. The range lights cast his face in shadow, made him look older, made him look like her father had looked in those final months before the cancer took him. "Master Chief, have you ever taken a shot when missing wasn't an option? When if you missed, someone on your team died?" Wade was quiet for a long moment. Then, "3 times." "How many did you make?" 3 for 3. "Why?" "Because missing wasn't an option." Rachel nodded. "Tomorrow, missing isn't an option, so I won't miss." Wade studied her. Something shifted in his expression. Recognition. Maybe respect. "They're setting you up to fail, you know. Brennan put in a request to observe from the kill house floor, not the observation deck." Rachel's jaw tightened. "That's against protocol." "He's a 2-star general. Protocol bends." "Let him watch from wherever he wants. The targets don't care about his rank." "No," Wade agreed, "but you should care that he's going to be looking for any excuse to disqualify your run." "Then I won't give him one." She picked up her rifle, secured it in its case, headed for the exit. Wade called after her. "Commander, what do you need from me tomorrow?" Rachel paused in the doorway. The night air carried the salt smell of the Pacific. The distant sound of training exercises echoed across the base. Somewhere, operators were preparing for missions, learning to shoot, learning to survive, learning to kill. "Just start the clock, Master Chief. I'll handle the rest." By the time Rachel reached her quarters, word had spread across the base. The story had mutated through each retelling. Some versions had her challenging Brennan directly. Others claimed she'd broken down under questioning. One particularly creative rumor suggested she'd actually admitted to fabricating her record. None were true. But truth didn't matter in the ecosystem of military gossip. Perception did. Rachel found a handwritten note slipped under her door. "They're making you the example. Don't give them the satisfaction." She didn't recognize the handwriting, but she understood the message. Somewhere on this base, someone was watching. Someone who understood what this was really about. Rachel sat on her rack, pulled out her phone, scrolled through contacts until she found a name she hadn't called in 3 years. Lieutenant Sophia Diaz, the first female SEAL candidate to make it through Bud/S after her. Currently attached to SEAL Team 3, somewhere overseas, doing the work Rachel had done for 11 years before they'd moved her to instruction. The call went to voicemail. Rachel almost hung up, then decided against it. "Sophia, it's Rachel Stone. I know we haven't talked since you graduated. I just wanted you to know. Tomorrow morning, I'm running Scenario 7. Some generals doubt my record. They think 73 is impossible." She paused. The words felt heavier than they should. "I'm going to show them it's not. I'm doing this so you don't have to, so the next woman doesn't have to. So someday, someone's competency is just assumed instead of constantly questioned." Another pause. Good luck with Team 3. You earned it. She hung up, set the phone aside. Sleep didn't come easy. When it finally did, Rachel dreamed of Helmand Province. 2010, her first confirmed kill. A Taliban fighter with an RPG 400 meters out, her spotter calling wind, her finger on the trigger. The knowledge that if she missed, 6 Marines would die. She hadn't missed. She never had. And tomorrow, she wouldn't start. At 0530 hours, Rachel stood outside the kill house facility. The eastern sky lightened from black to deep blue. She'd arrived early, not to practice, just to center herself. The rifle case rested at her feet. Her uniform was pressed. Her mind was quiet. The first observer arrived at 5:45, a Navy captain she didn't know, then another, then 10 more. By 5:55, the observation deck was packed. 40 officers, all of whom had heard some version of yesterday's confrontation, all of whom had formed opinions about what would happen in the next few minutes. Chen found her near the entrance. Rachel, last chance to back out. Not backing out, sir. They've stacked the deck, you know that. I know. Chen's face showed the strain of loyalty pulled in multiple directions. He was active duty. She was active duty. Brennan was a general. Politics mattered, perception mattered, but so did truth. Whatever happens, Chen said quietly, I've got your back. Thank you, sir. At precisely 0600 hours, the range officer's voice crackled over the external speaker. Lieutenant Commander Stone, you are authorized to enter and prepare. All observers to the deck. General Brennan, you are cleared to level 1 observation only. Rachel picked up her rifle case and walked through the entrance. The kill house swallowed her into darkness. Inside the observation deck, Ford leaned close to Brennan. You really think she'll fold? Brennan's smile was cold, certain. I think we're about to expose the biggest fraud in naval special warfare history. Below them, in the dark, Rachel Stone loaded her first magazine and whispered to no one. 73. Then she stepped up to the start line and waited for the clock to begin. The darkness inside the kill house wasn't complete. Red emergency strips ran along the baseboards, casting just enough light to navigate without revealing details. Rachel stood at the start line, her rifle held low and ready, her breathing already slowed to the rhythm she'd trained into muscle memory over 14 years. The intercom crackled. Wade's voice, professional, neutral. Commander Stone, you have reviewed the scenario parameters. Affirmative. 12 hostile targets, 4 civilian non-combatants. Any civilian hit results in immediate disqualification. Standard passing requires 10 of 12 hostiles neutralized in under 90 seconds. Do you understand? Yes, Master Chief. A pause, then quieter, almost apologetic. They changed the timing sequence. Pop-ups are 40% faster than standard. Rachel's grip tightened fractionally on her rifle. Acknowledged. Above her in the observation deck, Brennan leaned against the reinforced glass. Arms crossed, the posture of a man who'd already won. Let's see this miracle worker perform. Ford stood beside him, that thin smile still playing at his lips. Money says she freezes at the first civilian discriminator. I'm not taking that bet, Brennan said. She'll probably fire wild, hit a non-combatant, then blame the equipment. Chen stood 3 feet away, turned sharply. General, that's what, Captain? Honest? Brennan didn't look at him. We're about to watch someone who lied about their combat record fail publicly. I'm just calling it like I see it. Wade's voice cut through the observation deck speakers. Scenario 7. Live fire commencing in 5 seconds. Rachel let her eyes close for one breath. Not to pray, not to hope, just to let the last piece of doubt drain away. When she opened them again, there was nothing in her mind except the next target, the next decision, the next trigger pull. 3, 2, 1, execute. The buzzer screamed through the kill house, and Rachel moved. The first room materialized as pneumatic walls slid open with industrial hisses. Two hostile silhouettes snapped up from behind a partial barrier. One left, one right, both armed with weapon profiles. Rachel's rifle came up smooth as breathing. Double tap left, transition right, double tap right. 4 shots in 1.8 seconds. Both targets dropped. In the observation deck, a Marine colonel inhaled sharply. Jesus. Rachel was already moving, flowing into the corridor that connected to room 2. The lighting shifted. Strobes designed to distort depth perception fired randomly. Most operators slowed here, let their eyes adjust. Rachel didn't slow. Room 2 opened and her heart rate didn't spike because she'd trained it not to. One hostile holding a civilian profile, adult female. The gap between their heads was maybe 3 inches, maybe less. She didn't hesitate. Single shot, center mass through the gap. The hostile target folded. The civilian remained standing. "That's not possible," the Marine colonel said. "The gap was too narrow." "She got lucky," Brennan said, but his voice had lost some of its certainty. Wade watched the digital timer. 18 seconds elapsed. His jaw tightened. He'd run Scenario 7 43 times in his career. He'd never seen anyone move this clean. Rachel entered room 3 and time compressed. 3 hostiles, staggered positions, different elevations. One high left, one center low, one right behind a barrel obstacle. Her mind didn't process them as separate targets, just a problem set requiring a specific solution sequence. High left, 2 rounds, barrel right, angle shot, 1 round through the gap, center low. 2 rounds, 5 shots, 3 targets, 2.4 seconds. "She's not even breathing hard," Ford said, and now he wasn't smiling anymore. Brennan's hands gripped the observation rail. "It's a setup." Wade modified the scenario. Chen turned to face him fully. "General, Master Chief Wade doesn't modify scenarios for anyone, especially not under your direct observation." "Then explain what we're watching." "I am explaining it, sir." Chen's voice was tight. "That's what 73 confirmed kills looks like." Rachel cleared room 3's exit and paused for half a second. Not from fatigue, just tactical rhythm. Room 4 was the chaos room. Multiple hostiles, multiple civilians, all moving on tracks. The failure point for 60% of operators who made it this far. The door opened and chaos became geometry. 2 hostiles moving left. 1 civilian running across the field of fire. 3 hostiles staggered right. 1 civilian standing stationary center. Rachel tracked the hostile on the left, followed his movement pattern for 0.3 seconds, then fired the instant the civilian cleared her lane. Double tap. Target down. Second hostile left, partially obscured. She adjusted for the angle, fired once through the gap, transition right. The 3 hostiles were moving in a pattern, crossing each other's lines. Most operators would wait for clear lanes. Rachel didn't wait. She threaded shots between moving civilians like she was reading sheet music. 1 round here, 2 rounds there, another single shot, finding the gap that existed for half a second before closing. All 3 targets dropped. 0 civilians hit. Wade stared at the monitor displaying target status. His hands trembled slightly. Room 4 complete. Time, 41 seconds. Accuracy, 100%. A Navy lieutenant in the back row whispered, "That's not human." "No," Chen said quietly. His voice carried something like vindication. "That's what happens when you train someone properly and then give them 14 years to perfect it." Brennan's face had gone pale. "There are still 2 rooms left. She can still fail." But his voice carried no conviction anymore. Wade leaned closer to his monitor. His breath came shorter, because he was watching something he'd never seen before, something he'd spent 38 years in the Navy believing wasn't possible. He was watching perfection, and it wore the face of his dead friend's daughter. Rachel entered room 5, and her heart rate was still 68 beats per minute. The same as when she'd started. The same as when she'd taken her first confirmed kill in Helmand Province. The same as when she'd taken her 73rd in Raqqa. Room 5 was the psychological break room, designed specifically to induce decision paralysis through impossible scenarios. 2 hostiles, 3 civilians, all moving, 8 seconds to clear before automatic failure. The patterns were designed to never give clean lanes. The whole point was to force operators to choose between taking a risky shot or running out of time. Rachel entered and processed the movement patterns in microseconds. Her brain, trained through 10,000 hours of scenario work, honed through actual combat where hesitation meant death, saw the solution before her conscious mind could articulate it. She moved to the left wall, changing her angle by 15 degrees. The civilian's movement pattern now created a 2-second window where both hostiles would be exposed simultaneously. She waited. 1 second. 2 seconds. The window opened. 2 shots, both center mass, both perfect. The targets dropped with 3 seconds remaining on the room clock. Wade's hand went to his mouth. "Oh my God!" In the observation deck, Brennan turned to the range safety officer. "Check the system. Check the civilian sensors." There's no way she didn't clip one. The RSO ran diagnostics. "All sensors green, sir. 0 civilian contacts." "Check again." "Sir, I've checked 3 times. She hasn't touched a single non-combatant." Ford had stopped watching Rachel. He was watching Brennan. Watching the realization spread across the general's face, like spilled ink. Chen stood with his arms crossed, face neutral. But inside something fierce and protective burned, because he was watching a colleague prove what he'd always known, and watching 2 generals realize they'd made a catastrophic mistake. Rachel exited room 5 and approached the final door. Wade's voice came through tight with something that might have been awe. "Final room, Commander. 4 hostiles, 1 civilian, multiple concealment positions. Standard time remaining, 22 seconds. 22 seconds. Rachel checked her magazine. 6 rounds left. More than enough. She centered herself one final time, then stepped through the door. Room 6 exploded into motion. Targets popped from positions that shouldn't have been mechanically possible. Ceiling mounts, floor panels, rotating barriers. The civilian was a child profile, making the discrimination even more critical. 4 hostiles, 1 child, 22 seconds. Rachel's rifle tracked left before the first target fully emerged. She fired on the upswing, catching the hostile the moment weapon profile cleared the barrier. Second hostile right side, partially concealed behind the child civilian. She held for 0.4 seconds, waiting for separation. The civilian moved left. Rachel fired right. Single shot. Perfect placement. Third hostile dropped from a ceiling mount, an innovation Brennan had personally requested, something not in the standard scenario. Rachel adapted before conscious thought, firing upward in a motion so smooth it looked rehearsed. The target fell. Fourth hostile was the trick. It appeared behind the civilian, weapon profile visible, but no clear shot without risking the child. Most operators would circle, looking for angle. Rachel went low, dropping to one knee, changing her sight line by 18 inches. The gap appeared. She took the shot. The final hostile folded backward, and the buzzer sounded completion. The digital clock froze, 68.4 seconds. The observation deck didn't erupt in applause. It didn't react at all, because 40 special operations officers were trying to process what they just witnessed. Wade's voice came through the intercom, shaking. Scenario 7 complete. Time, 68.4 seconds. Hostile targets, 12 of 12 neutralized. Civilian targets, 0 contacts, perfect run. He paused, then added something that wasn't in the standard protocol. New facility record. Rachel safed her weapon, removed her magazine, cleared the chamber. Her hands were steady, her breathing was normal. She looked up at the observation deck, found Brennan's face behind the glass, and held his gaze. She didn't smile, didn't nod, just looked at him the way you'd look at someone who'd finally understood a truth they should have known all along. Then she turned and walked toward the exit. Brennan stood frozen at the observation rail, his knuckles white against the metal. Beside him, Ford had gone completely silent, his earlier smirk replaced by something hollow. Chen spoke quietly, but everyone nearby heard him. "General Brennan, would you like to revise your assessment of Commander Stone's verified kill count?" Brennan didn't respond, couldn't respond, because there was nothing to say. The math was simple, brutal, undeniable. 68.4 seconds, 12 targets, 0 misses. 26 seconds faster than the previous facility record, under modified conditions specifically designed to make her fail. It wasn't just good, it was historically significant. The kind of performance that would be studied in training manuals, referenced in doctrine updates, whispered about in operator bars for the next 20 years. And it had been executed by the woman he'd publicly called a fraud less than 24 hours ago. Wade stood in the control booth, staring at the readouts. His hands shook slightly as he logged the official results. 62 years old, 38 years in the Navy, Vietnam veteran. He'd seen the best of the best, but he'd never seen this. He thought about Rachel's father, his best friend, the man who'd saved his life in the Mekong Delta in 1969. The man who'd asked him, on his deathbed, to look after his daughter. Wade had doubted her. Not publicly, not openly, but in his heart when Brennan had questioned her 73 kills, Wade had wondered. Had thought maybe the number was inflated. Maybe she'd been given credit for team kills. Maybe the Navy had bent the truth for political reasons. He'd been wrong. And standing in that control booth, watching the replay on the monitors, Wade felt something he hadn't felt since Vietnam. Shame. Rachel emerged from the kill house into morning sunlight that felt sharp after the red-lit darkness. She set her rifle case down, signed the equipment log that Wade held out with shaking hands. "Ma'am," he started, then stopped. His voice was rough, thick with something Rachel couldn't quite identify. "I've been running this facility for 8 years. I've never seen anything like that." "It's just training, Master Chief." "No, ma'am," Wade's jaw worked. "Respectfully, that wasn't training. That was—" He struggled for the word. Behind them, officers were beginning to file out of the observation deck, voices low, urgent, the sound of 40 military professionals trying to reconcile what they'd witnessed with what they'd been told to believe. "That was art," Wade finally said. "That's what 73 looks like when they're real, when every shot matters, when missing means someone dies." Rachel met his eyes, saw something there she hadn't expected, respect, but also regret. "Master Chief, did you doubt me?" The question was direct, unflinching, the kind of question that demanded an honest answer. Wade didn't look away. "Yes, ma'am, I did." The admission hung between them, raw, painful. "Why?" "Because I'm old," Wade said quietly. "Because I've seen things change in ways I don't always understand. Because when I was your age, women couldn't even serve in combat roles. And some part of me, some stupid old part, still thinks that matters." He paused, drew a breath. "I was wrong, and I'm sorry." Rachel was quiet for a moment. Then she picked up her rifle case. "Thank you for the apology, Master Chief, but I didn't do this to prove something to you. I did it to prove something to them." She nodded toward the observation deck, where Brennan stood visible through the glass, still frozen, still processing. "Those generals," Rachel continued, "they're not going to let this go. You know that." Wade nodded slowly. "You just embarrassed 2 stars in front of the entire SOF community." "No, Master Chief. I just proved they embarrassed themselves." 40 minutes later, Rachel sat in a small office off the range complex. Completing the post-exercise debrief, standard procedure, weapon status, ammunition expenditure, performance notes. Her hand was steady as she filled out the forms. Muscle memory, administrative ritual, the bureaucracy of violence. Chen burst through the door, his face flushed, tie loosened, the professional veneer cracked. "We have a problem." Rachel looked up from the form. "Sir?" "Brennan just filed a formal complaint with the base commander. He's claiming the scenario was modified to ensure your success." Rachel set down her pen very carefully. "On what evidence?" "He claims the timing sequences didn't match standard protocol. That Wade deliberately slowed the pop-up mechanisms." "That's a lie." "I know it's a lie. You know it's a lie. Wade knows it's a lie." Chen's voice rose slightly. "But Brennan has 30 years of credibility, and you just made him look like a fool." Rachel stood. The office suddenly felt smaller, the walls closer. "So what happens now?" "Now?" Chen's laugh was bitter. "Now they're convening an integrity review. Full investigation into whether you and Wade conspired to fake your demonstration run." The words hung in the air like smoke. Rachel felt something cold settle in her chest. The same feeling she'd had in Raqqa when the mission had gone sideways. When extraction had been delayed. When survival had stopped being guaranteed and started being probabilistic. "They're going to erase what I just did." "They're going to try." Rachel moved to the window, looked out at the base beyond. Operators running PT, candidates in training. The machinery of naval special warfare grinding forward, indifferent to individual injustice. "Even though 40 officers witnessed it," she said quietly, "even though the digital records show everything. Digital records can be questioned. Witness testimony can be dismissed as inter-service bias." Chen stepped beside her. "Brennan's already spinning it, says you had access to the facility beforehand, that you could have programmed the sequence, that Wade has a known preference for promoting female operators. Wade doubted me until 20 minutes ago. I know, but that doesn't matter to Brennan. The story matters. The perception matters. And right now, Brennan's story is that you're a fraud who got caught." Rachel sat back down. Not because she was defeated, but because her legs suddenly felt unreliable. So it didn't matter. The demonstration, the perfect run, none of it mattered. Chen was quiet for a long moment. Then he moved to the window, his back to her. "Commander, I didn't say that." "Then what are you saying, sir?" He turned to face her, and his expression was harder than she'd ever seen it. "I'm saying Brennan just made the biggest mistake of his career, because he didn't just attack you, he attacked Wade. He attacked the integrity of this facility. He attacked every operator who witnessed that run and knows exactly what they saw." Chen's voice dropped lower, more intense. "And that changes everything. Because now this isn't about one woman's kill count. It's about whether a 2-star general can falsify an investigation to protect his ego." Rachel absorbed this. Let it settle. Let the implications spread. "What do you need from me?" "Right now? Nothing. Go back to your quarters. Don't talk to anyone. Don't respond to anything. Let me handle this." "Sir, with respect." "Rachel," Chen's voice softened, "trust me. You proved your point in that kill house. Now let the system prove it can actually work." She wanted to argue, wanted to fight, but she'd been fighting for 14 years. And suddenly she was just tired. "Yes, sir." She stood, gathered her things, walked out. But as she crossed the courtyard toward her quarters, she passed a group of junior SEALs in training. One of them, a kid who couldn't have been more than 22, stepped forward. "Ma'am, I just wanted to say we were watching from the auxiliary feed. That was the most incredible shooting I've ever seen." Rachel stopped. "Thank you. Is it true you have 73 confirmed kills?" She met his eyes. Young, eager, uncomplicated by politics or prejudice. "Yes." "Were you scared? The first time?" The question caught her off guard. No one had ever asked her that. "Terrified. But you took the shot anyway." "Because someone had to, and I was the one in position to do it." The kid nodded slowly, like he was filing that information away for future use. "We've got your back, ma'am. Whatever happens with those generals, the teams have your back." Rachel felt something loosen in her chest. "That means more than you know." She continued to her quarters, and for the first time in 48 hours, she allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, she hadn't been fighting alone after all. The base commander's office smelled like old coffee and older decisions. Rear Admiral Vincent Carter sat behind a desk that had seen 3 decades of difficult conversations. His fingers steepled in front of his face as he listened to Brennan build his case. "The timing was too perfect," Brennan said, pacing in front of the window. 68 seconds? That's not just beating the facility record, that's demolishing it by over 25 seconds. Ford nodded from his seat against the wall. "And she had unrestricted access to the kill house the night before. 3 hours according to the range logs." Carter's expression didn't change. Master Chief Wade was present during that entire period. His report states she never entered the scenario rooms, only used Lane 12 for basic marksmanship. "Wade's report," Brennan said, turning sharply. "Wade, who has been vocal about his support for expanded female roles in special operations. Wade, who personally authorized her scenario request without command consultation." "He's the range master," Carter said quietly. "Authorization is within his purview. Not for modified scenarios." "Who said it was modified?" Brennan stopped pacing. "Admiral, I've run Scenario 7 myself, twice. I know what the standard timing feels like. What we witnessed this morning was not standard protocol." Carter leaned back in his chair. The leather creaked, age and use. "You're accusing a decorated Master Chief of falsifying a training scenario to benefit a female officer. That's a serious allegation, General. I'm accusing him of letting his politics interfere with his professional judgment." "Based on what evidence?" "Based on what I saw." "You saw a perfect run," Carter said. His voice remained level, neutral. 12 of 12 targets, 0 civilian hits, under 70 seconds. That's not evidence of fraud, that's evidence of exceptional skill. Ford leaned forward. "Or evidence of exceptional preparation. If she knew the exact timing sequences, the exact pop-up patterns." "Those patterns are randomized," Carter interrupted. "The system generates them algorithmically at scenario start. Wade couldn't have given her advanced knowledge even if he wanted to." Brennan's jaw tightened. "Then the algorithm was manipulated. By whom?" "I don't know yet, but I intend to find out." Carter stood. Despite being shorter than both generals, his presence filled the room. The weight of his rank, his experience, his authority. "Let me be very clear about something, gentlemen. You're asking me to convene an integrity investigation that will question the credibility of one of my senior range personnel, impugn the reputation of a decorated naval officer, and suggest that our scenario systems are vulnerable to manipulation." He paused, let the weight settle. "Do you understand the implications of what you're requesting?" "I understand that integrity matters more than reputation," Brennan said. "Good," Carter replied, "because that standard applies to everyone in this room." The words hung there, sharp-edged, deliberate. Ford shifted uncomfortably. "Admiral, we're not questioning Commander Stone's service record. We're questioning one specific demonstration that defies statistical probability." "Her entire record defies your statistical probability," Carter said. 73 confirmed kills, multiple commendations, a Navy Cross nomination that's still classified. The only thing that's changed is that now you've seen what those numbers actually mean." Brennan's voice went cold. "Are you refusing to investigate?" "I'm asking if you're prepared for what an actual investigation will uncover." "Meaning what?" Carter pulled a file from his desk drawer, dropped it between them with a heavy thud. "Meaning that before you walked into my office making accusations, I pulled Commander Stone's complete operational jacket, not the sanitized version, the actual classified record." Brennan reached for the file. Carter's hand slapped down on top of it. "You don't have clearance for this," Carter said. But I do. And I can tell you that 73 confirmed kills isn't an exaggeration. If anything, it's conservative. There are another 12 engagements where she took shots, but confirmation was impossible due to operational circumstances. She didn't claim them because she couldn't verify them. Ford's face had gone pale. That would make her one of the most lethal snipers in American military history, Carter finished. Yes, the silence that followed was thick enough to cut. Brennan recovered first. Then why isn't this information public? Why isn't she a poster child for female integration in combat roles? Because she requested it stay classified, Carter said. 3 separate times she turned down opportunities for publicity. Turned down a Navy Cross ceremony because it would have required declassification. Turned down an interview with the Naval Institute because she didn't want to become a spokesperson. She just wanted to do the job. Convenient, Brennan muttered. Carter's expression hardened. General, you've been in my office for 15 minutes making allegations you can't support, questioning the integrity of personnel you've never worked with, and demanding an investigation into a performance you can't explain except through conspiracy. He leaned forward. So let me ask you a direct question. Is this about Commander Stone's competency? Or is this about your discomfort with what her competency represents? Brennan's face flushed red. Admiral, I don't care what you appreciate. I care about facts. And the facts are that 40 officers witnessed that demonstration. The digital records corroborate every aspect of her performance. Master Chief Wade's logs show no irregularities. The scenario system's algorithm checks are all green. Carter's voice rose slightly. The only thing that doesn't check out is your allegation that something must have been wrong because the performance was too good. Ford stood slowly. Admiral Carter, we came here in good faith. No, Carter cut him off. You came here looking for institutional cover to discredit a female officer who just proved you wrong. There's nothing good faith about that. The room went silent again. Brennan's voice, when it came, was tight with barely controlled anger. Are you denying our request for an investigation? I'm tabling it pending independent review. I'm sending the scenario footage, the system logs, and Master Chief Wade's report to Naval Special Warfare Command. They'll determine if there's grounds for investigation. That could take weeks. Then you'll wait weeks. Brennan and Ford exchanged glances. Some unspoken communication passed between them. Brennan nodded slightly. Fine, we'll wait for NSW Command's review. But Admiral, when they confirm our concerns, this conversation will be part of the record. I'm counting on it, Carter said. The 2 generals left without saluting. The door closed behind them with a controlled click that somehow sounded like a slam. Carter sat back down heavily, rubbed his eyes, pressed his intercom button. Get me Captain Chen, now. 3 minutes later, Chen entered, his face already showing he knew this wasn't good news. They're not backing down, Carter said without preamble. Can NSW Command deny the investigation? They can delay it, probably will, because the optics of investigating a female SEAL instructor at the request of 2 Marine generals who publicly doubted her record are terrible. But if Brennan has enough allies at Headquarters Marine Corps, they might pressure NSW into action anyway. So what do we do, sir? Carter pulled out another file. I made some calls while those 2 were grandstanding. Talked to some people at JSOC who actually have the clearance to review Rachel's full record, and they're willing to provide testimony supporting her operational history. Chen's eyes widened. You're going to declassify her kills? Selectively, just enough to establish credibility without compromising ongoing operations. If Brennan wants an investigation, fine, but he's going to get the investigation he deserves, not the one he wants. Sir, Rachel specifically requested to stay out of the spotlight. I know, Carter said, but she doesn't get that choice anymore. Brennan made this public the moment he filed his complaint. Chen stood, walked to the window, stared out at the base beyond. She's going to hate this. Probably, but sometimes doing the right thing means accepting consequences you didn't choose. That's not fair to her. No, Carter agreed. It's not, but neither is what those generals tried to do. And between unfair publicity and unfair dismissal, I know which one protects more female operators in the long run. Chen turned back. What do you need from me? I need you to brief Commander Stone, explain what's happening, explain why we're doing it this way, and make sure she understands that this fight stopped being about her the moment those generals made it about every woman in uniform. She already knows that, sir. That's why she ran the demonstration in the first place. Then she'll understand why we're taking the next step. Chen nodded, headed for the door. Carter's voice stopped him. Captain, one more thing. Sir? There's a female Marine Raider captain named Isabella Cruz. She's stationed at Camp Pendleton. 3 years ago, General Ford blocked her promotion to Major. Find her, see if she's willing to talk. Chen's expression shifted to something harder. You think there's a pattern? I think when someone makes an accusation this aggressive, you investigate everything, including the accuser. After Chen left, Carter sat alone in his office, staring at the file in front of him. Rachel Stone's service record. 14 years of excellence reduced to paper and redacted text. He thought about his own daughter, currently a sophomore at the Naval Academy, already talking about flight school despite his quiet suggestions that there were other paths. He thought about what he'd tell her if she called and said a superior officer had publicly called her a liar. What he'd want someone in his position to do. The decision wasn't difficult after that. He picked up his phone and dialed a number he hadn't called in 5 years. It rang twice before a gruff voice answered. This is Vice Admiral Hendricks. Sir, it's Vince Carter. I need to talk to you about a situation at Coronado. Is this about the SEAL instructor who embarrassed 2 Marine generals this morning? Carter blinked. You already heard? Vince, the footage has been on every unofficial SOF message board for the last 3 hours. The whole community is watching this. Then you know why I'm calling. Hendricks was quiet for a moment. Off the record? Yes, sir. Burn them. Burn them so badly that no general officer ever thinks about pulling this again. Carter exhaled. That's not exactly official guidance, sir. No, it's personal advice from someone who's been watching talented women get pushed out of the pipeline for 30 years because men were more comfortable questioning their competency than examining their own biases. Hendricks's voice hardened. Official guidance? Play it by the book. Document everything. Follow proper procedure. But Vince, the book has enough flexibility to make sure the truth actually matters. Understood, sir. And Vince, that SEAL instructor, Stone, she just became the most important test case for female integration in SOF that we've had in a decade. How you handle this determines whether the next generation of women even tries. Carter felt the weight of those words settle onto his shoulders. No pressure, sir. Welcome to flag rank. It's nothing but pressure. Handle it well. The line went dead. Carter set down the phone, pulled up the kill house footage on his computer, watched Rachel move through those rooms with a precision that bordered on prescient, watched her make decisions in microseconds that most operators couldn't make with minutes. And he understood why Brennan couldn't accept it, because accepting it meant accepting that everything Brennan believed about capability, about physical limitations, about who belonged in combat roles, was wrong. It meant accepting that a woman had achieved something he never could, despite 30 years of trying. That kind of acceptance required humility, and Brennan had run out of that a long time ago. Carter closed the video file and opened a new email. Subject line, Request for Expedited Classification Review. Recipient, Naval Special Warfare Command. Attention, Admiral Richardson. He began typing, choosing each word carefully, because this email would determine not just Rachel Stone's future, but the future of every woman who came after her. And he'd be damned if he'd let 2 bitter generals stand in the way of that. Meanwhile, in her quarters, Rachel sat on her rack, staring at her phone. 17 missed calls, 34 text messages, 6 voicemails. She hadn't listened to any of them. Instead, she'd spent the last 2 hours cleaning her rifle, field stripping it down to components, reassembling it with the kind of meditative focus that came from doing something so many times it became prayer. A knock at her door broke the silence. "It's open." Chen entered, his face grave. "We need to talk." Rachel set down the rifle barrel she'd been inspecting. "How bad is it?" Brennan filed a formal complaint. "Admiral Carter is sending everything to NSW Command for review." "So they're investigating me?" "They're investigating the allegations." "There's a difference?" Chen pulled out her desk chair, sat down heavily. "Rachel, there's more. Admiral Carter is requesting partial declassification of your operational record." Rachel's head snapped up. "No, absolutely not. It's not your choice anymore." "The hell it isn't. That's my record, my kills, my—" She stopped. Her voice had cracked slightly. Chen's voice softened. "Those are real people, every one of them. I don't get to turn them into publicity." "You're not turning them into publicity. You're using them as evidence. Evidence that I'm not a liar. Evidence that I actually did what I said I did. I shouldn't need evidence for that. My word should be enough." In a perfect world, yes, but we don't live in a perfect world. We live in one where 2 generals can question your credibility without consequence unless we force consequences. Rachel stood, walked to the window, her back to Chen. "I didn't sign up for this. I didn't sign up to be a test case, or a poster child, or a symbol of anything. I just wanted to serve." "I know. Do you?" She turned to face him. "Do you really? Because every day I have to prove I deserve to be here. Every day someone looks at me and sees a diversity hire, or a political statement, or anything except a trained operator who's damn good at her job." Her voice rose slightly. "And I've accepted that. I've accepted that I'll never just be judged on my performance alone. But this," she gestured vaguely, "at the situation, at everything. This is them saying even perfect isn't good enough. Even a flawless demonstration with 40 witnesses and digital records and everything documented still isn't enough proof that I'm telling the truth." Chen let her words settle before responding. "You're right. It's not fair. None of this is fair. But fair stopped mattering the moment Brennan decided his ego was more important than your dignity." He stood, moved closer. "Now the only question is what happens next. And Admiral Carter believes, I believe, that the way forward is to make your record so undeniable that no one can ever question it again. By violating my privacy, by turning classified operations into public spectacle, by protecting every woman who comes after you from having to fight this same battle." Rachel turned away, the weight of it pressed down, suffocating. "That's a heavy burden to carry." "Yes," Chen agreed, "but you've been carrying heavy burdens for 14 years. This is just one more." She was quiet for a long time. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. "If we do this, if we declassify the kills, I want something in return." "What?" "I want an investigation into Brennan and Ford. I want their records reviewed. I want to know how many other women they've questioned, blocked, pushed out." Rachel turned back, met Chen's gaze. "Because this isn't about me. You're right about that. But it's not about them either. It's about the system that let them get away with it for this long." Chen smiled grimly. "Admiral Carter is already ahead of you. He's got feelers out to Camp Pendleton about a Marine Raider Captain Ford blocked." "Good, then I'll cooperate. But Captain," she paused, "when this is over, when the investigation is done and the records are declassified and everyone knows the truth, I'm requesting a transfer. Somewhere far away from here, somewhere I can just do the job without being a symbol." Chen nodded slowly. "Fair enough, but first we have to win." "We will," Rachel said. and her voice carried the same cold certainty it had in the kill house. Because unlike those generals, we're not afraid of the truth. The call came at 0600 the next morning. Rachel was already awake, had been for hours, running through contingencies in her mind like she was planning an operation. When her phone buzzed with Admiral Carter's direct line, she knew the waiting was over. "Commander Stone." "My office. 30 minutes. "Yes, sir." She dressed carefully, regulation uniform. Every crease perfect, every detail exact. Not because she thought it would matter, but because precision was the only control she had left. The walk across base felt different. Officers she'd never met nodded as she passed. A group of SEAL candidates stopped their morning run to watch her go by. One of them, a young woman maybe 23 years old, met her eyes and mouthed 2 words. "Thank you." Rachel didn't acknowledge it. Couldn't. Because if she started accepting gratitude for something that wasn't finished yet, she'd lose the edge she needed to see it through. Admiral Carter's outer office was already crowded. Chen stood near the window. Wade sat rigid in a chair, his face carved from stone. And seated across from them, looking like she'd rather be anywhere else, was a woman Rachel didn't recognize. Marine Corps uniform, captain's bars, an expression that said she'd been through hell and survived but hadn't forgotten the scars. Carter emerged from his inner office before Rachel could ask questions. "Everyone's here. Good. Inside." They filed in. Carter closed the door and turned to face them. "I'll make this brief. NSW Command completed their preliminary review overnight. The scenario footage, system logs, and Master Chief Wade's documentation all support Commander Stone's demonstration as legitimate." He paused. The weight of what came next hung in the air. They found no evidence of manipulation, modification, or misconduct. Rachel felt something loosen in her chest, but Carter's expression told her this wasn't relief yet. "However," he continued, "General Brennan has escalated to Headquarters Marine Corps. He's claiming the NSW review was biased due to inter-service loyalty, and he's demanding a joint investigation under the Inspector General." "That could take months," Chen said. "It could take a year, maybe longer. And during that time, Commander Stone's credibility remains in question. Her career is effectively frozen, and every female operator on this base operates under a cloud of doubt." Wade's hands clenched into fists. "Sir, that's unacceptable." "Correct," Carter said, "which is why we're not waiting." He turned to the Marine captain Rachel didn't know. "Captain Cruz, tell them what you told me." The woman stood slowly, like her body was still deciding whether this was safe. 3 years ago, I was recommended for promotion to major. My fitness reports were exemplary. My operational performance was rated superior across the board. General Ford sat on the promotion board. She paused, swallowed hard. "He delayed my promotion for 18 months. When I finally got access to the board notes through a FOIA request, his comments were clear. Concerns about physical capability for sustained operations. Recommend additional evaluation period to ensure standards are maintained." "Standards that male officers didn't have to reprove," Carter added. Cruz nodded. "I wasn't the only one. I've since connected with 4 other female officers who encountered similar roadblocks when Ford was involved in their career progression. None of us filed complaints because," her voice cracked slightly, "because we were told it would look like we couldn't handle criticism, that we were being too sensitive." Rachel felt rage building in her throat like bile. "So he's been doing this for years." "At least 5 that we can document," Carter said. "Probably longer. Captain Cruz has agreed to provide formal testimony." "At what cost?" Rachel asked quietly, looking at Cruz. "They'll destroy your career for this." Cruz met her eyes, and Rachel saw something there she recognized. The exhaustion that came from fighting battles that shouldn't need fighting. "They already tried to destroy it. I'm just making sure they don't get to do it to anyone else."
Carter pulled out another file, set it on his desk with deliberate weight.
"And there's more. I received a call last night from a civilian contractor who worked with General Brennan in Afghanistan in 2019. Female intelligence analyst. She claims Brennan repeatedly dismissed her assessments and briefings, told her she was too emotional for operational planning, eventually had her removed from his command staff.
Can she prove it? Chen asked.
She kept emails, recorded conversations, documentation that would make a JAG prosecutor weep with joy. Carter's smile was grim. She never came forward because she was a contractor, thought no one would believe her over a general. But when she saw the footage of your demonstration and heard what Brennan was claiming, she reached out.
Wade spoke for the first time, his voice rough. So what's the play, sir? We have evidence of a pattern. We have witnesses.
How do we use it? Carter sat on the edge of his desk. We give Brennan exactly what he asked for, a full investigation, except we expand the scope. We investigate not just Commander Stone's demonstration, but the conduct of all parties involved in questioning it, including a comprehensive review of General Brennan and General Ford's history with female personnel. They'll fight that, Chen said. Let them, because the more they fight, the more it looks like they have something to hide. And the Inspector General doesn't like generals who look like they have something to hide. Rachel had been quiet, processing. Now she spoke. Admiral, what about my operational record, the declassification request? Carter's expression softened slightly. NSW Command is willing to provide limited declassification. Not your entire jacket, just enough to establish credibility. Specifically, they're prepared to confirm the number of confirmed kills, the theaters of operation, and the commendations attached to those operations. The tactical details remain classified. How limited are we talking? A 2-page summary, redacted for operational security, but sufficient to prove that 73 isn't fiction. It's actually conservative. Rachel let her eyes drift closed for a moment. 2 pages, 14 years reduced to 2 pages. 73 people who died by her hand, summarized in clinical language that would strip away the context, the necessity, the weight of every trigger pull. Commander Stone, Carter's voice was gentle. I know this isn't what you wanted, but it's what's necessary, she finished, opening her eyes. I know, sir. I'll cooperate on one condition. Name it. When this is done, when the investigation concludes and the truth is documented, and those generals face whatever consequences they've earned, I want a transfer. Instructor position. Somewhere quiet. Somewhere I can train operators without being a symbol or a cautionary tale or whatever else people decide I represent. Carter studied her face for a long moment. You've earned that. When this is over, you pick your orders. I'll make it happen. Thank you, sir. Don't thank me yet, because before we get to over, we have to go through hell. And Brennan has spent 30 years learning how to make hell last. The Inspector General's investigation formally launched 72 hours later. A team of 4 investigators, 2 Navy, 2 Marine Corps. They descended on Coronado with the kind of methodical intensity that made everyone nervous. Guilty or not, they interviewed Rachel for 6 hours the first day. The lead investigator, a Navy captain named Walsh, was professionally neutral, but Rachel could feel the skepticism radiating off the Marine Corps lieutenant colonel sitting beside him. Walk me through the demonstration again, Walsh said for the 3rd time. Start from the moment you entered room 4. Rachel repeated the sequence. Her voice stayed level, factual, empty of emotion. Double tap left, single shot partially obscured, transition right, thread 3 shots through moving civilians. And you're certain you didn't hit any civilians? The Marine Lieutenant Colonel asked. The sensors confirmed 0 civilian contacts. Sensors can malfunction. The backup systems confirmed the same results, as did the visual observation from 40 witnesses. Witnesses who had a vested interest in seeing you succeed. Rachel's jaw tightened. Witnesses who understand what they saw because they're trained operators themselves. Walsh held up a hand. Let's move on. Commander, in your statement you mentioned that General Brennan questioned your kill count before you requested the demonstration. Can you describe that interaction? She could, in excruciating detail. Every word, every implication, every moment where she'd felt her credibility being shredded in front of her peers. The interviews continued. Wade was questioned for 4 hours, Chen for 3. Every officer who'd witnessed the demonstration was brought in and asked to describe what they'd seen, how they'd interpreted it, whether they noticed any irregularities. But the investigators didn't just interview witnesses to the demonstration. They also started pulling records, personnel files, promotion boards, fitness reports, every interaction Brennan and Ford had with female officers over the last decade. And patterns started emerging. On day 5, Walsh called Rachel back in. This time he was alone, and his expression had shifted from skeptical to something harder. Commander, I need to show you something. He pulled out a file, slid it across the table. This is a compilation of 17 female officers who had career interactions with either General Brennan or General Ford over the past 8 years. 12 of them reported delays in promotion. 8 reported negative fitness reports that contradicted their operational performance. 5 left active duty earlier than planned. Rachel stared at the file. 17. That we found so far. The numbers are likely higher. Many women don't report because they assume nothing will come of it. They're probably right. Walsh's expression tightened. Commander, I want to be clear about something. When I started this investigation, I assumed we'd find evidence that your demonstration had been modified in some way. Not because I thought you were lying, but because the performance was statistically improbable. He paused. I was wrong. The evidence is overwhelming that you did exactly what you claimed. What I didn't expect to find was evidence of systematic bias from the officers who questioned you. What happens now? Now, Walsh said, this stops being about you and becomes about them. But Brennan wasn't done fighting. On day 7, a letter appeared in the Marine Corps Times, signed by Brennan and co-signed by Ford. It was carefully worded, avoiding direct accusations while implying everything. Recent events have highlighted the need for rigorous standards in special operations training, it read. While we support the integration of qualified personnel, regardless of gender, we must ensure that political pressure does not compromise the integrity of our evaluation systems. Excellence cannot be assumed. It must be proven consistently, transparently, and without accommodation. Rachel read it on her phone while sitting in the SEAL team room. Around her, a dozen operators had gone silent. That's not about you, one of them finally said. That's about all of us. He's saying the whole SOF community is compromised. He's saying political correctness is making us weaker, another added, like the standards dropped to let you pass. Rachel set down her phone very carefully. The standards didn't drop, I exceeded them. We know that. Question is whether everyone else will. The answer came faster than anyone expected. Within 18 hours, a response letter appeared in the same publication, signed by 15 female special operations personnel, SEALs, Raiders, Special Forces, combat controllers, some retired, some still active, all with combat experience. Excellence is not gender-specific, the letter stated. It is demonstrated through performance, not presumed through bias. The recent questioning of a decorated naval officer's verified combat record speaks not to political pressure, but to institutional resistance to accepting that women can and do meet the same standards as men. We call on senior leadership to address this resistance with the same vigor they claim to apply to maintaining standards. The letter was polite, professional, and devastating because it shifted the narrative from one woman's credibility to the military's willingness to acknowledge female competence. And it terrified Brennan. Rachel could tell because he made his first mistake. He called her directly. Commander Stone, this is Major General Brennan. I think we need to talk. Rachel put the call on speaker. gestured for Chen, who just walked into her office, to stay. Sir, anything you need to say to me should go through the IG investigation. This isn't about the investigation, this is about damage control, for both of us. I'm not the one causing damage, General. You know what I mean. This has gotten out of hand. The press is involved now. Congressional staffers are asking questions. Neither of us needs this kind of attention. You're right, I didn't need any of this. I just needed you to check my record before calling me a liar. Brennan's voice hardened. I never called you a liar. You said my kill count was statistically impossible fiction. What would you call that? I called it skepticism, which any reasonable person would have. Any reasonable person would have verified before accusing, sir. Silence on the line. Then quieter, more calculated. What do you want, Commander? Rachel felt something cold settle in her chest. What would it take for this to go away? Are you asking me to drop my cooperation with the investigation? I'm asking what it would take for both of us to move past this. You want a transfer? I can make that happen. Choice of duty station, favorable fitness report. We both walk away clean. Chen's eyes went wide. He mouthed one word. Recording. Rachel shook her head slightly. California was a two-party consent state, but she didn't need a recording. She just needed witnesses. General Brennan, let me make sure I understand. You're offering me favorable treatment in exchange for dropping my participation in an active Inspector General investigation. I'm offering you a reasonable resolution to an unfortunate situation. That sounds a lot like offering me a bribe to obstruct an investigation, sir. Don't put words in my mouth, Commander. I'm just clarifying your offer, General, so let me give you my answer. Rachel's voice went cold, precise, each word chosen with surgical care. No, I won't drop my cooperation. I won't accept a transfer bought with silence, and I won't help you sweep your pattern of gender bias under the rug just because it's gotten politically inconvenient. You're making a mistake. The only mistake I made was assuming you'd act with integrity when presented with evidence that contradicted your biases. I won't make that mistake again. She hung up. Chen stared at her. Did he just attempt to interfere with an IG investigation? Yes. Rachel, you have to report this immediately. Already composing the email. She pulled out her laptop and started typing. Subject line, attempted interference, IG investigation. Recipient, Captain Walsh, Inspector General's office. She detailed the call, Brennan's offer, her refusal. She didn't editorialize, didn't interpret, just documented exactly what was said. When she hit send, Chen let out a breath he'd been holding. That's it. He's done. Maybe, or maybe he has enough friends in high places to survive this too. Not this, not attempted obstruction. Rachel wanted to believe him, but she'd seen too many senior officers escape consequences through connections and carefully worded apologies. The response from Walsh came 30 minutes later. Received. Thank you for immediate reporting. Request you preserve all phone records. This information will be included in final investigation report. The investigation's final report was due in 72 hours. But before it arrived, Rachel received an unexpected visitor. Wade appeared at her office door. His face showed the strain of the past 2 weeks. The investigation, the testimony, the weight of having to defend choices he'd spent 38 years believing were right. Master Chief, come in. Wade entered but didn't sit, just stood near the door, like he might need to leave quickly. Commander, I owe you an apology. You already apologized after the demonstration. No, Wade's voice was rough. I apologize for doubting you, but I need to apologize for something deeper. He finally moved further into the room, sat down heavily. Your father and I served together in Vietnam, Mekong Delta. 69. We were both young, stupid, thought we were invincible. Wade's eyes went distant, remembering. There was this operation, night patrol. We got ambushed. Your father took a round through the shoulder, kept fighting anyway, dragged me out when I got hit, saved my life. He paused, the memory heavy. When he was dying, cancer eating him from the inside, he asked me to look after you, said you were going to do something important, that you were tougher than both of us combined. Wade's voice cracked slightly. I promised him I would. But when Brennan questioned your 73, I didn't defend you. I didn't speak up. Some part of me wondered if maybe the number was inflated, if maybe the Navy had bent the truth for political reasons. He met Rachel's eyes. I broke my promise to your father, and I dishonored his memory by doubting his daughter. Rachel was quiet for a long moment. Then she stood, moved to the window, looked out at the base where her father had once trained, where he'd earned his Navy Cross, where he'd learned the skills that would save Wade's life in a jungle halfway around the world. Master Chief, my father told me something before he died. He said the hardest part of leadership isn't making the right decisions. It's living with the consequences of the wrong ones. She turned to face Wade. You made a mistake. You doubted me when you should have defended me. But you also testified honestly during the investigation. You provided the documentation that proved Brennan modified the scenario. You stood up when it mattered. Rachel's voice softened slightly. My father would say that's what counts, not the doubt, but what you did after. Wade's eyes glistened. He stood, extended his hand. Your father was a better man than I'll ever be. But watching you in that kill house, I finally understood what he saw in you, what he tried to tell me before he died. What's that? That you weren't just good, you were the best of both of us. Everything we should have been if we hadn't been limited by the prejudices of our time. Rachel shook his hand. Thank you, Master Chief. No, Commander. Wade's grip was firm. Thank you for proving that the next generation doesn't have to make the same mistakes we did. The final report arrived on a Tuesday morning, delivered not by email, but by hand. Walsh himself carried it into Admiral Carter's office, his face showing the kind of controlled tension that came from knowing what you were about to say would end careers. Rachel sat across from Carter's desk, Chen standing behind her, Wade to her left, Captain Cruz beside him. Walsh laid the file down with deliberateness that made it feel like evidence at a trial. Admiral, the investigation is complete. Findings are conclusive. Carter opened the file but didn't read it yet. Summary first, Captain. Walsh stood at attention though no one had asked him to. Commander Stone's demonstration was conducted entirely within established protocols. No evidence of manipulation, accommodation, or modification was found. Her performance of 68.4 seconds with perfect accuracy represents legitimate, exceptional skill consistent with her documented operational history. Rachel felt something loosen in her chest, but Walsh wasn't finished. However, our investigation revealed substantial evidence of gender-based bias from Major General Robert Brennan and Brigadier General Marcus Ford. We documented 17 cases of female officers experiencing career delays, negative evaluations inconsistent with performance, or early separation following interactions with one or both generals. He paused. The weight of what came next, heavy. Additionally, General Brennan's attempted contact with Commander Stone during an active investigation constitutes interference with an IG inquiry. This represents a violation of Military Justice Code and applicable regulations governing investigation integrity. Carter looked up sharply. Recommendations. General Brennan, formal reprimand, removal from all personnel evaluation roles, recommendation for immediate retirement. General Ford, formal reprimand, mandatory bias training, removal from promotion boards for a period of 2 years. Both officers are flagged for further review by Headquarters Marine Corps. The room went silent. Wade's voice came out rough. That's it? After what they did? Walsh turned to him. Master Chief, in a perfect world, their careers would be over today. In the real world, these recommendations represent the maximum consequence we can enforce without triggering a political firestorm that would ultimately hurt the very people we're trying to protect. He's right, Carter said quietly. We push for court-martial. HQMC pushes back. This becomes a partisan battle, and the story becomes about politics instead of conduct. This way, the record speaks for itself. Rachel spoke for the first time. What about the other women, the 17 you documented? Walsh met her eyes. Every one of them will receive a formal review of their career progression. Cases where bias clearly impacted advancement will be remediated. It's not perfect justice, but it's institutional correction. And the next woman? Rachel pressed. The one who comes after me. What stops this from happening to her? This does. Walsh tapped the report. This investigation becomes case law. Every commander, every senior officer now knows that gender-based credibility challenges will be investigated, documented, and punished. You didn't just prove your own competency, Commander. You made it harder for anyone to question the next woman's without evidence. Rachel wanted to feel victorious, wanted to feel vindicated, but all she felt was tired. When will they be notified? She asked. They already have been, Carter said. Both generals received preliminary findings 2 hours ago. Official notification goes out this afternoon. As if on cue, Carter's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, his expression hardening. Speaking of which, General Brennan is requesting an immediate meeting. Claims he has new evidence that warrants reconsideration. Chen made a disgusted sound. He's stalling. Let him stall, Carter said. The findings are final, but I'll give him 15 minutes to make whatever case he thinks he has. He looked at Rachel. Commander Stone, you're welcome to attend. Rachel shook her head. No, sir, I've said everything I need to say. He can talk to the record. But 20 minutes later, as Rachel was walking across the base courtyard, she saw Brennan's staff car pull up to the admin building. The general emerged, 65 years old, 3 decades of service visible in every movement. But something had changed. His shoulders slumped slightly, his face drawn. He looked old. And for a moment, just a moment, Rachel felt something that wasn't quite sympathy, but wasn't quite indifference either. She thought about the file Carter had shown her. Brennan's son, Captain David Brennan, KIA, Afghanistan, 2011. The classified after-action report. The female soldier who'd saved David's body for recovery. The grief that had twisted into policy. Rachel stood there, watching Brennan walk into the building where his career would effectively end, where 30 years of service would be reduced to a formal reprimand and forced retirement. She could have walked away, should have walked away. Instead, she found herself following him inside. Brennan sat in the waiting area outside Carter's office, alone. Ford had abandoned him, self-preservation trumping loyalty. He looked up when Rachel entered. His face cycled through surprise, anger, resignation. Commander Stone. General. They sat in silence for a moment, the air thick with everything unsaid. You don't need to be here, Brennan finally said. You won. This wasn't about winning, sir. Wasn't it? His voice carried bitterness. You proved your point, destroyed my career in the process. Congratulations. Rachel was quiet. Then she sat down across from him. General, I know about your son. Brennan's face went rigid. That's classified. Admiral Carter has clearance. He told me. Not the details, just that you lost him in Afghanistan, that there were female soldiers in his unit. Brennan's jaw worked. You don't know anything about it. I know that one of those female soldiers saved his body for recovery, that she fought alongside your son, that she survived and he didn't. And I know that somehow, in your grief, you decided that meant women shouldn't serve in combat. She wasn't ready, Brennan said, his voice cracking. The unit wasn't ready. If they'd maintained proper standards. 3 men also died in that ambush, sir. Were they not ready either? Or was it just war being brutal and random and unfair? Brennan looked away. You don't understand. I understand you lost your son. I'm sorry for that, truly. But your son earned his place in that unit. So did Specialist Santos. She made her choice just like he made his. And you dishonor both their memories by suggesting women don't belong in combat. Rachel's voice remained steady, firm but not unkind. Your son died a hero. Let that be his legacy, not the weapon you used to block 17 women from serving their country. Brennan was silent for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely audible. I thought I was protecting them. You were protecting yourself from having to face that some women are willing to die for the same things your son died for. The door to Carter's office opened. The Admiral appeared. General Brennan, Commander Stone. He looked between them, surprised to see them together. The General's appointment is now. Brennan stood slowly, like a man walking to execution. He paused at the door, looked back at Rachel. For what it's worth, Commander, that demonstration, it was the finest shooting I've ever seen. Thank you, sir. But it doesn't change anything. No, sir, it doesn't. Because this was never about changing your mind. It was about making sure you couldn't change anyone else's. Brennan nodded slowly, then walked into Carter's office. The door closed behind him. Chen appeared beside Rachel. What were you doing? Giving him a chance to understand. Did he? I don't know. Maybe. But it doesn't matter anymore. She stood, straight in her uniform. It's over, Captain. The fight's done. Now we just wait for the paperwork. The official announcement came 3 days later, a terse press release from Headquarters Marine Corps. Following an Inspector General investigation, Major General Robert Brennan has elected to retire effective immediately. Brigadier General Marcus Ford has been reassigned to administrative duties pending review. The language was careful, neutral, bureaucratic, but anyone who knew how to read military announcements understood what it meant. Careers over, reputations destroyed, legacy tarnished. The unofficial response was louder. Message boards exploded. Social media split into predictable camps. Some called it political correctness run amok. Others called it long overdue accountability. Rachel ignored all of it. She was back on the range, running a basic marksmanship course for SEAL candidates, when Captain Cruz found her. Commander Stone, can we talk? Rachel called a 10-minute break and walked with Cruz away from the firing line. I wanted you to know, Cruz said, the Marine Corps reopened my promotion board. I'm being advanced to Major effective next month, with back pay for the 18 months they delayed me. That's good. You earned it. I earned it 3 years ago. I'm only getting it now because you were willing to fight when I wasn't. Rachel turned to face her. You were willing. You testified. You put your career on the line just like I did. Only after you showed it was possible to win. We haven't won yet, Rachel said quietly. We just made it slightly harder for them to keep doing what they were doing. The fight doesn't end here. I know, Cruz hesitated. I'm putting together a working group, female officers across SOF components, sharing information, supporting each other, documenting issues before they become crises. Would you be willing to participate? Rachel wanted to say no, wanted to fade back into operational work and leave the politics to someone else. But she thought about that young SEAL candidate, about Sophia Diaz, about the next woman who would face what she'd faced. Yes, but I'm not a spokesperson. I'll contribute, I'll support, but I'm not the face of anything. Fair enough, just having your name attached will matter. After Cruz left, Rachel returned to the firing line. The candidates were ready, eager, focused. One of them was a woman, the only female in the class. She held her rifle with natural competency that came from proper training and natural aptitude. What's your name? Rachel asked. Petty Officer Brooks, ma'am. How long you been shooting? 6 years, ma'am. Qualified expert on my first range call. Good, show me. Brooks took her position, settled her breathing, fired 5 rounds downrange. All 5 hit center mass. Rachel checked the target, then turned back. You're pulling slightly left on your trigger press. Compensate by adjusting your grip pressure. Try again. Brooks made the adjustment, fired 5 more. Perfect group. Dead center. Better, Rachel said. Keep that consistency and you'll do fine here. Thank you, ma'am. Brooks paused. Ma'am, I just wanted to say what you did. Standing up to those generals. It matters to all of us. Rachel met her eyes. What matters is that you're here, that you're qualified, that you're going to be an operator who's so damn good that no one can question whether you belong. That's what matters. Yes, ma'am. As the class continued, Rachel felt something shift. Not relief, not victory, just a quiet recognition that the weight she'd been carrying had distributed itself across more shoulders. She wasn't fighting alone anymore. None of them were. 2 weeks later, Admiral Carter called her back to his office. This time, it was just the two of them. Your transfer request, he said, sliding a folder across the desk. I have 3 options for you, all instructor positions, all away from the spotlight. Rachel opened the folder. Dam Neck, Virginia, Little Creek, Virginia, Naval Special Warfare Center, Coronado. She looked up. Coronado isn't away from anything, sir. No, but it's where you can do the most good. Train the next generation. Make sure they're better than the last one. Carter leaned back. I know you want to fade away, want to be just another operator doing the job. But Rachel, you're not just another operator anymore. And pretending you are doesn't serve anyone. He gestured to the folder. Take a few days. Think about it. But understand that wherever you go, your reputation goes with you. The only question is whether you use it or run from it. Rachel closed the folder. I'll think about it. That night, she sat in her quarters and called her father's old number, the one that had been disconnected for 12 years. She knew no one would answer, but sometimes she needed to hear the silence where his voice used to be. The line rang and rang. Then, unexpectedly, someone picked up. Hello? Rachel froze. The voice was unfamiliar, male, older. I'm sorry, she said. I must have misdialed. Who are you trying to reach? My father, but he's been dead for 12 years. This was his number. Sometimes I call it to remember. There was a pause then. What was your father's name? Commander John Stone, Navy. He died in 2012. Another pause, longer this time. I knew your father, Mekong Delta. We served together. Rachel's throat tightened. Who is this? Colonel Marcus Webb, retired. I bought this property 5 years ago. Kept the old phone line because it was easier than getting a new number. But if this was your father's number, he trailed off then. He talked about you, all the time, said you were going to be something special, better than him, better than all of us. Rachel felt tears prick her eyes. Did he really say that? Every damn day, even when he got sick, especially when he got sick. He was so proud of you. I wish he could have seen. Rachel stopped. The words caught. Seen what? Nothing. It's a long story. I've got time. So Rachel told him. About the briefing room, the demonstration, the investigation, the generals, all of it. When she finished, Webb was quiet for a long moment. Your father would have been proud, he finally said. Not because you proved them wrong, but because you did it the right way. With honor, without losing yourself. I'm not sure I did it the right way. You're still standing, aren't you? Still serving? Then you did it right. Webb paused. Can I tell you something your father told me right before we left Vietnam? Please. He said the hardest part of being a warrior isn't the fighting. It's coming home and realizing the war doesn't end just because you leave the battlefield. That you carry it with you, every choice, every consequence. And the real courage isn't in pulling the trigger, it's in living with what happens after. Rachel let the words settle, hearing her father's wisdom through a stranger's voice. Thank you for telling me that. Thank you for calling, and for doing what your father always knew you would. After they hung up, Rachel sat in silence, staring at the display case with her grandfather's pistol, her father's Navy Cross, her own silver stars. 3 generations, 3 wars, 1 legacy. She thought about Brooks, about Cruz, about Sophia Diaz and the 23 others ready to testify, about the next woman who would stand in a briefing room and have her competency questioned. And she made her decision. The next morning, Rachel walked back into Carter's office, put the folder on his desk. Coronado, I'll stay. Carter didn't smile, but his expression shifted to something like approval. You're sure? No, but I'm certain that running from this won't make it go away. And I'm certain that the women coming up behind me deserve instructors who understand what they're going to face. Good. You start your new position in 2 weeks, Senior Instructor for Advanced Marksmanship and Tactical Employment. You'll have a staff of 4 in full autonomy over curriculum development. I want one condition. Name it. I want the authority to fail any student who doesn't meet standard. Regardless of gender, no quotas, no political pressure, no accommodation. Everyone meets the same bar or they don't pass. Carter nodded. Agreed. But understand that standard cuts both ways. You can't make it easier for men or harder for women. I wouldn't. That's the point. 3 months later, Rachel stood in front of her first class as senior instructor. 24 students, 4 of them women, all of them watching her with the kind of intensity that came from knowing her reputation. My name is Lieutenant Commander Rachel Stone, she began. For the next 12 weeks, I'm going to teach you how to shoot. Not accurately, not competently, how to shoot perfectly every time under any condition. Because perfect is the only standard that matters when someone's life depends on your trigger pull. She paused, meeting eyes around the room. Some of you already know my story. Some of you have opinions about what happened with those generals. I'm going to tell you right now, none of that matters here. What matters is whether you can perform when it counts. Rachel's voice carried across the room. I don't care about your gender, your background, your politics, or what anyone told you before you got here. I care about whether you can put rounds on target when everything is falling apart and people are depending on you. One of the male students raised his hand. Ma'am, is it true you have 73 confirmed kills? Rachel held his gaze. It's true. And if you're asking because you're curious, that's fine. If you're asking because you doubt it, you're in the wrong class. Because I'm not here to prove anything to you. I'm here to teach you how to be operators who never have to prove anything to anyone. Because your performance speaks for itself. The student nodded slowly. Understood, ma'am. Good. Now let's get to work. Over the next 12 weeks, Rachel taught them everything she knew. Not just marksmanship mechanics, but decision-making under pressure, threat assessment, the psychological cost of taking a life, and the professional requirement to do it anyway when necessary. She failed 3 students who couldn't meet standard. 2 men, 1 woman. She didn't enjoy it, but she didn't hesitate either, because the standard was the standard, and lowering it for any reason would dishonor everyone who'd met it. By the end of the course, 19 students graduated. All 4 women passed, and when the final scores were posted, the top shooter was Petty Officer Mia Brooks, who'd learned to compensate for her trigger pull and developed into one of the finest marksmen in the class. On graduation day, Admiral Carter attended. So did Chen, Wade, Cruz, and sitting in the back row, Sophia Diaz, who'd taken leave from Team 3 just to watch. Rachel kept her speech short. You came here as candidates. You're leaving as operators. The only thing that's changed is what you're capable of. Remember that when someone questions whether you belong. Remember that when the job gets hard. Remember that when you're the only woman in the room, or the only man who believes she should be there. She paused, the weight of the moment settling. Competency doesn't ask for permission. It just performs. After the ceremony, Sophia found her. That was good, not too sentimental. I don't do sentimental. I know, it's one of the things I learned from you. Sophia paused. I got my orders, deploying in 6 weeks. Where? Can't say, but I wanted to thank you before I left, for showing me what's possible, for fighting when you could have just accepted what they said about you. Rachel shook her head. I didn't do it for you. I did it because it was right. I know, Sophia said. That's why it mattered. As the crowd dispersed, Rachel stood alone on the range where she'd proven herself 3 months ago. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the kill house facility. She thought about Brennan, now retired, about Ford relegated to administrative obscurity, about the 17 women whose careers had been salvaged, and the dozens more who would never face what they'd faced. She thought about 73 confirmed kills, each one a decision made in microseconds that she'd carry for a lifetime. She thought about 68.4 seconds that had changed everything and nothing. And she thought about Brooks, about Sophia, about every woman who would come after them, who would be judged on their performance instead of their gender, because someone had been willing to fight for that right. Rachel picked up her rifle case and headed back toward her office. There would be another class next month, another group of candidates to train, to test, to prepare for a job that didn't care about anything except whether you could perform when it mattered. She'd proven she could. Now she'd spend the rest of her career making sure they could too. In her quarters that night, Rachel stood before the display case one final time. Her grandfather's 1911 pistol gleamed in the low light. The promise made in 1995, fulfilled in 2024. When you're ready, you'll know. She was ready. And now she was teaching them to be ready too. Somewhere in America tonight, an 8-year-old girl was learning to shoot, learning that when someone tells her what she can't do, the only answer that matters is performance. Some numbers don't lie. 73 confirmed kills, 68.4 seconds. One woman who refused to let doubt matter more than documentation. They just wait for the right moment to speak. And Rachel Stone had made sure they spoke loud enough for the next generation to hear.